You and your friends decide to journey inside a creepy old mansion, searching through each and every room, looking for something. All the while, something else might find you. There will become a traitor inside Betrayal at House on the Hill. I will show you how to play and set up this game. So let's take it up to the top, and I'll show you how to set it up. Then we'll come back up here, and I'll show you how to play.
So the first thing I like to do when setting up the game, I'll separate all the tokens. So we have all the monster tokens here. Then we have here, these are item pile tokens. So if somebody were to drop something in a room or some things, you would place this token and it just shows that there are items there to be picked up. Then we have, this is kind of a random pile of, there's wall switch, a plant, there's a fountain, and then we have this over here, pretty much secret passage tokens. We have, of course, the secret passage, the secret stairs, and the closet. Then over here, these are roll tokens. We have a might roll, knowledge roll, sanity roll. So you would put these in a room where you would have to perform one of those rolls, kind of as a reminder that you have to do that before either entering or leaving the room. Then you want to shuffle the room tiles, and then you want to place a single stack. You can either place a single stack. I like to do double stacks. It makes it easier, and you don't have this just large stack of tiles next to the board. Then you want to make sure you shuffle the event, item, and omen cards and put them in their own individual stacks. Then you want to make sure the Traitor's Tomb and Secrets of Survival books are within reach of all players. Do not read until the haunt scenario begins. Then you want to place all characters on the starting tile. It'll have the grand staircase, foyer, and entrance hall on it, and all characters will start in the entrance hall. You want to make sure you separate the landing tiles. So we have the basement landing, which is pretty much where you start in the basement. So we'll keep that separate from the main tile. Then we have the upper landing, which is where you start on the upper floor. So we'll keep that separate from the main tile as well. You also want to make sure the dice are in reach of all players. And you'll take the omen tracker and make sure it's set to 0. We'll place that next to the board. You want to take the character cards, make sure all the traits are set to the starting number. So the starting number is this green number right here. Then you want to make sure that you're playing as the right characters. So we have Professor Longfellow on this side, and we have Father Reinhardt on this side. So each card has 2 characters on it. Let me tell you a little bit more about traits. So traits are pretty much your health tracker, and each character has 4 traits: knowledge, sanity, might, and speed. So if an effect were to increase your knowledge, you would just slide it up that number of spaces. So if you were at the 5 and it says increase it by 2 or gain 2 knowledge, you would slide it up 2 spaces. Now there is a maximum value. If you get there and an effect says gain 2 knowledge, you cannot go past that maximum value. There's also a skull on the trait. So if you see the skull there, that is, so if any of your traits ever gets there, that's the end of your explorer. But it cannot get there until the haunt begins. So if there was an effect that causes you to get to the skull, so say you were at the 1 and it says lose, 1 sanity, and you drop to the skull, you cannot drop to the skull until the haunt begins. So you would actually just stay there, even if it told you to lose more sanity. When taking damage, the cards or rooms will tell you to take mental or physical damage. So the mental damage is knowledge and sanity. The physical damage is might and speed. So if you were to ever take mental or physical damage, you could actually divide it between the 2. So say you had to take 5 mental damage. So you could take 2 damage in knowledge, and then you could take, well, you couldn't take any more insanity if you were there, but if you were up here, you could take 3 insanity. So it would go 1, 2, 3. And then also the same with might and speed. If an effect or room were to say lose physical damage, you could divide it. So say it said to lose 3 physical damage, you could slide it down 1, 2, and then you could slide this down 1. You also want to make sure you look at each character's birthday, because that's going to come into play pretty much at the start of the game. So let's take this back up top and I'll show you how to play. So to start the game, everybody's going to roll the dice. They're going to see who goes. Nope, not in this game. So if you remember in the beginning, I said you need to know what your character's birthday is, because that's who's going to go first. The person who goes first is the person whose birthday is coming up next. So if we look here, I have Oxbellows, birthday October 18th. Over here, Professor Longfellow, birthday July 27th. And we see over here, Heather Granville, birthday August 2nd. So Oxbellows would go first because his birthday is coming up next. So on your turn, you can move, you can discover new room tiles, you can use item and omen cards, you can attempt a dice roll, or you can make an attack once during your turn, only once the haunt has started. So it is Oxbellow's turn, and he's going to move. Now the way you move is you're going to look at your speed. So his is 4 right now. And you're going to be able to move that number of spaces. So he'll move 1, 2. Now, he can also discover other rooms with his speed. So let's say he does 1, and then he'll flip over a tile. Now, when discovering new rooms, you want to make sure that the tile says the name of the floor that you're on. So this says basement, so we can't use it here. This one says basement, we also can't use that there. You want to just make a discard pile with the tiles that you can't use next to the draw stack. So this one says upper, ground, or basement. So we can use this on either one of those levels. So I'm going to go ahead and flip it over, and I'll place it there. Now, if it doesn't have a symbol on it, you can keep moving. So let's see. So he had 1, 2, and then he'll look at another room. So this one also says ground. So he'll flip that one over. 3. Now it has a symbol, so he has to stop. There are 3 types of symbols on the tiles. So first we have the event deck. So you would draw a card from the event stack. Then we have the items symbol. So you would draw a card from the items deck. Then we have the omen symbol, where you would draw a card from the omens. So each of these, they do something a little bit differently. The omens are, of course, not good. The items usually are pretty good. And the events, they can be good or bad. Also, when entering a new room with a symbol on it, only the first person to enter that room has to draw a card. So it's Oxbellow's turn. He enters the patio. The symbol is the event stack. He draws the card. And then, say, Professor Longfellow later comes into that room, he can actually just walk right through it. It does count as a movement, but he doesn't have to draw a card, so he can just continue on until his movement runs out or he is forced to stop and draw a card. You also want to make sure you position the tile the correct way as to not make any false doors leading to nowhere, pretty much. So you wouldn't be able to do that unless say it's your last ground tile, then that is the exception. You could do that. But if it's not your last one, you would have to discard it and look for a different one. You would just place this in the discard pile and then look for a different one. So like this one, you could place here because it doesn't have another doorway leading anywhere. So you could place it there and you would have to go a different route to get there. I'm going to show you all some of the special tiles. Some would consider these spoilers. So if you'd rather not see them, I'll go ahead and post a timestamp below of where the showing of the tiles ends. So the first ones we have are the chasm, the catacombs, the vault, and the tower. So these are considered barrier rooms. What that means is when you enter it, you're on one side, and to cross, you need to perform a trait roll to get on the other side. Monsters ignore barrier rooms, but if they land in one, they have to say what side of the room they're on. Say the monster entered this side, it could go on whatever side it wants, but it has to state what side it ends on. So it says, it's either on this side or this side. If you were to place a token in one of the barrier rooms, the side that you choose is the side it stays on. So say you were placing the secret passage token and you say, okay, I'm going to place it on this side of the room. It's going to stay on that side of the room, and if somebody wants to use it, they have to go to that side of the room. When two people are in a barrier room, they cannot interact with each other, such as trading, fighting, or anything like that, unless they're on the same side. So this would be two different sides of a barrier room, and this would be the same side. Let me go ahead and explain how to do a trait roll. So in the tower, it says you can attempt a might roll of 3 or more to cross. If you fail, you stop moving. So you would look at your character's might level. So we see that Oxbella's is at 5. So you would take 5 dice, and then the tower says attempt a might roll of 3 or more to cross. If you fail, you stop moving. So we take your 5 dice and you would roll, and you're looking to get 3 or more to try and cross. So I would have gotten 4 and I would have been able to cross. Now, when you successfully cross, it does not count as a movement. The next one we have is the coal chute. Is a one-way slide to the basement landing. So if you remember earlier, we put aside the basement landing. So the coal chute is a slide leading to the basement, and you have to slide down it. You can't just stop on the coal chute. It's a chute. You can't, hold on, I'm not going to slide down this coal chute. I didn't fall in. I'm holding onto the wall. You have to fall in. Next tile we have is the collapsed room. You must attempt a speed roll of 5 or more to avoid falling. If you fail the roll, draw a basement tile and put it in play. You fall there and take 1 die of physical damage. So the first person to enter this room takes a speed check. So Oxbellow's speed is 4. He would roll 4 dice, and he's looking for 5. He fails, so he would draw a basement tile, he connects it to the basement landing, he falls there, and takes 1 die of physical damage. So he would roll this, and he would take 1 die in physical damage. So he could either do damage in might or speed. Now, if it's a monster that lands on this tile, they do not draw a tile to place on the basement. They just land in one that's already there. If any other players want to use this after the first player has used it, they can choose to or choose not to. They don't have to like the first player had to. Then we have the junk room. When exiting, you must attempt a might roll of 3 or more. If you fail, lose 1 speed, but continue moving. So when you're exiting the junk room, you have to attempt a might roll. And if you fail, you lose 1 speed, but you continue moving. Now, if you were to lose speed and you don't have enough to exit the room, then you would still exit. You would just land directly adjacent to the junk room. Then we have the mystic elevator. Once per turn, roll 2 dice and move this room next to any open door. On 4, you go to any floor. On a 3, you go to the upper floor. On a 2, you go to the ground floor. On a 1, you go to the basement. On 0, basement, then take 1 die of physical damage. So say you roll the dice and you get a 1. So on the 1, you go to the basement and it would move there. Now, if there was any reason that you could not connect this to the floor that it says, you would just leave the mystic elevator where it's at. If there's more than one person in the mystic elevator and they roll a 0, basement, then take 1 die of physical damage, anybody who's in the elevator also takes 1 die of physical damage. Ouch. Monsters and traitors can also use the mystic elevator, but they can only use it once per traitor/monster turn because they're on the same team. So if the traitor were to use it and he takes it to another room and the monster comes and tries to use it, that is not possible because that is in the same traitor/monster turn. The last tile we have is the grand staircase, foyer, and entrance hall tile. It is all one tile, but it's counted as separate rooms. So we have The entrance hall is one room, the foyer is another, and the grand staircase is another. Also, the grand staircase and the upper landing are separate rooms as well. When using item and omen cards, you can trade them with a player in the same room as you. So if you had the revolver and you want to trade Professor Longfellow for his mask, you could say, I'll give you my revolver for your mask. And if they accept, well, you can definitely trade them. You can drop any number of items. So say you want to drop the mask and the revolver in the foyer, you would leave an item pile token. And if somebody else comes in there, they can pick up that token, and the items they would get would be the revolver and the mask. You can't use an item and then trade it. So say you just shot the revolver and then you walk into here with Professor Longfellow and say, I want to trade you this revolver. Well, you can't because you just used it. The way you use these cards, you just state that you're going to use it. You say, okay, well, I'm about to use the mask. And you can use item or omen cards once per turn. Some item and omen cards cannot be dropped, traded, or stolen. Like the madman, the girl, and the dog, they're all companions, and you cannot drop them, trade them, or steal them from anybody else. And it says it right here on the cards. So it says it on each of those cards. So when using item and omen cards, you can only do one of those. You can only use it, trade it, drop it, steal it, or pick it up in one turn. You can't use it and then drop it in the same turn, or trade it and then steal it, or trade it and then use it. You can only do one. You only have one choice during your turn. Many of the haunts will have special rules for item tokens, but unless it's stated otherwise, you can always steal, trade, or drop any item tokens that you find. So many times in this game, you're going to be attempting dice rolls. So there's no limit to the different types of dice rolls you can perform, but there is a limit to the certain type of dice roll you can perform. So for example, let's go back to the vault. You can attempt a knowledge roll of 6+ to open and empty the vault. So you can try and open the vault, and if you miss, then you can't try it again. But on the same turn, you can roll to use your mask. So once during your turn, you can attempt a sanity roll to use the mask. So those are two different rolls, but you can perform them in the same turn. So when making a damage roll, if an effect were to tell you to take 1 die of physical damage, you roll a die and you take the damage value according to the dots rolled. If you roll more than 1 die, then you add up the total and you take that much physical or mental damage. So for example, we have, this says take 2 dice of physical damage. So you would roll a 2 dice and you get 2. So that's 2 dice of physical damage. So you can split that up between might and speed if you wanted to. So let's say the might was at 5 and you're going to take 1, and then you're going to take 1 from the speed as well. And then the same thing goes for if it were to say take 2 dice of physical damage, you would, so if it was a 2, you could split that up again. You could take 1 from sanity and you could take 1 from knowledge. So when making an attack, you can make an attack once per turn and only once the haunt has started. So if you want to make an attack, you have to be in the same room as somebody. And then say if Oxbellows wanted to attack Professor Longfellow, he would look at his might. The might attack is the most common type of attack. So he would look at his might, and it's at a 5. So he would take 5 dice and roll them. And his result is a 4. And then Professor Longfellow would look at his might, and it's also a 5. And he would roll the dice. And he got 6. So the loser would take the difference in damage. So Oxbellows would take 2 damage, since Professor Longfellow got 6 and Oxbellows got 4. So Oxbellows would take 2 damage. Again, he could split it between might and speed because it's a physical attack. If it was a mental attack, he would split it between sanity and knowledge. When making an attack with different types of traits, you have to make sure that the player you're attacking has that trait. So if you're trying to fight a monster or the traitor, and you're trying to fight them with a mental trait and they don't have a mental trait, you have to fight them with a physical trait. When attacking a monster, they only ever get stunned. So if you win the attack, you don't defeat them, they're just stunned for a little while. Also, during the make an attack phase, you can make a haunt-specific action according to the haunt and the rules it says. You can also make a distance attack. So like with the revolver, it says you can use the revolver to attack with speed instead of might. With the revolver, you can attack anyone in the same room or within line of sight through an uninterrupted straight line of doors. If you attack someone in another room and lose, you don't take damage. So if Oxbellows wanted to attack Professor Longfellow, he could because he has line of sight. There's no interruptions. But if Professor Longfellow was in this part of the vault and Oxbellows was in the foyer, he could not attack him with the revolver because there's a barrier there blocking his line of sight. You could also steal item and omen cards from somebody if you do more than 2 physical damage. So again, if Oxbellows and Professor Longfellow were fighting and Oxbellows did more than 2 damage to Professor Longfellow, you could say, all right, old man, give me a revolver or give me your mask instead of you taking damage. So let's get into how the haunt begins. Every time a tile with an omen symbol on it is revealed, of course, you're going to move in. You're going to raise the omen tracker by 1. So it was at a 3. We're going to raise it to 4. You're going to read the card. Then after reading, it says, make a haunt roll now. The way you're going to do that is you're going to roll 6 dice. And if the amount is less than the number of omens that have been revealed throughout the game, so right now we're at a 4. If the amount was less than this, the haunt would begin. After the haunt begins, you still draw omen cards, but you no longer make a haunt roll. So the way you figure out which haunt you're going to play is you're going to look at the Traitors tome booklet. On the first page, there's a haunt chart. And you want to look at what room you're in. You're in the dining room. And which omen card started the haunt. That's the medallion. So we look here on the haunt chart. We see in the dining room and then the medallion, we're going to be doing haunt number 21. Then we go down here and we see who the traitor is. So for haunt number 21, the traitor is going to be the oldest explorer, except for the haunt revealer. So we look at the players that we're playing with, and if you look at their age right here, we see that Heather Granville is 18, Oxbellows is 23, and Professor Longfellow is 57. So Professor Longfellow is going to be the traitor, or whoever controls Professor Longfellow will be the traitor. Once the hunt begins, the traitor will take the Traitor's tome booklet into another room to see what their new goals are. Meanwhile, the heroes will read the Secrets of Survival Guide booklet to see what their new goals are. Also, both the Secrets of Survival Guide and the Traitor's tome booklet have sections that say right now rules. Usually it requires you place some special tokens on the board or remove certain cards from the deck before the haunt actually begins. Yes, I'm the traitor. Oh, I'll be back. Are you the traitor? Listen, I got some new special powers and rules for you. Let's start off with, if you were hindered by the webs or the debris, you're no longer hindered by that. You're freed. Also, unless a haunt says otherwise, you have new special powers. You can use beneficial text on tiles while ignoring the harmful text. You can move through the revolving door without having to roll. You can move the mystic elevator without having to roll. You just get in and say, hey, I want to go here. You still fall down the coal chute, but that's okay. You'll be fine. You can choose to be affected or not by event cards, and specifically the Bite Omen card. If you choose to be affected by cards, it happens after you read the text, but before any rolls are made. You can read an event card and say, no, I don't want to do this, and you don't have to do it. But if you choose to be affected by the card, you accept any and all penalties or rolls that happen because of that card. After you move, all the monsters you control get to move. You can even still control the monsters after you die. Sometimes the monsters can still help you win the game even if you're gone. You're the traitor now. Get him. Once the traitor comes back and all players are ready to start the game, the hero on the traitor's left will start the game. Then every hero gets a turn, then it's the traitor's turn, and then any monster's turn. So essentially the traitor gets 2 turns, one for themselves and one for any monsters they control. Sometimes there's a hidden traitor in some of these haunts. So the way you're going to decide who the hidden traitor is you're going to take a number of tokens depending on how many players there are. So we have 3 players, so 3 tokens, numbered 1 to 3. You're going to shuffle those tokens, and each player will choose one. The player who chooses the number 1 is going to be the hidden traitor. Let me explain how monsters work. So first of all, monsters will move differently. On the haunt rules, it'll show you how many speed your monster has. So let's say it's 3. If your monster has a 3 speed, you're going to roll 3 dice. And whatever the result is, that's what your monster or monsters get to move. So if you have 1 monster, it's going to get to move 1 space. If you have multiple groups of monsters, they'll each get to move 1 space. Monsters cannot be killed. if a monster were to take damage, it is only stunned. So if you defeat it, you would only flip it over to the S side, meaning it's stunned, and it skips its next turn. So monsters, just like the explorers, can only attack once per turn. They also cannot do any special attacks, so they can't steal items. They cannot do long distance attacks unless it's stated otherwise in the haunt. Just like the traitor, a monster ignores harmful text on tiles, and they can also use special tiles, like they can go through the revolving door without rolling dice. They, of course, everybody falls down the coal chute, but the monsters can climb up or down it. They don't get any special abilities from trait tiles. So once per game, if you end your turn here, gain 1 speed. If the monster ends their turn there, they do not gain 1 speed. Monsters cannot carry any items, and if they were to carry any items, once they are stunned, they drop the item that they are carrying. Also, they can use secret passage tokens. So if there's a secret passage in a room, a monster can use that secret passage to get to the other secret passage or other room. If you're in the same room as the monster or the traitor once the haunt has begun, you suffer -1 movement to leave. So with Oxbellows, his speed was 4, but he would not be able to move 4 since he's with the traitor and the monster. He would only be able to move 3. The same goes for the traitor and the monster. If they're in the same room with the hero, they suffer -1 movement to leave. And the last thing is monsters cannot explore new rooms. They can only go into rooms which have already been discovered. Whichever side completes their haunt goals first is the winner. If you enjoyed watching this video and you want to learn how to play more board game videos, don't forget to subscribe and ring that bell. I'll be posting more videos every week. Thanks for watching The Other Board Gamer.
So you've decided to journey inside a creepy old mansion. Well, it's got some surprises in store for you. While searching each and every room, something might find you. While journeying inside this mansion, one of your friends will become the traitor, and there will be a betrayal at House on the Hill. I'll show you how to set this game up, and we'll come back up here and I will show you how to play.